So this month's theme is anxiety, and so the microphone doesn't work, the clicker's on the fritz, and a third of the audience is behind the screen. So my fiance also told me that my pants are too tight and it looks like I have chicken legs. I'm very excited about this talk this morning. It's going to be very good. So when Colin asked me to talk, he said, hey, listen, if you want to fit in with the flow on Creative Mornings, you always make sure that you have no more than 4 words describing your title, and it's super accurate to your talk. The difficulty is I'm super verbose, and I can't be accurate in 4 words. So I came up with 2 other titles. I told Colin about these titles, and he said, one of them is offensive and the other one is pandering. Please don't use those. I'm still using the other 2. So the talk is anxiety and creative tension, or I want to make art, but I want you to pay for it, or how bipolar made me a better marketer. So this gives you a prelude to what is going on. But the first rule of public speaking is that you need to set expectations, right? I realized yesterday, I checked the Creative Mornings website, and I looked at the profile photo, and it was not the photo that I had given Colin. And then I texted him and I said, haha, funny, great prank, this is great. And he said, no, it uploaded the photo when you first created your Creative Mornings account in 2009. So if you came here expecting a 1980s wrestler or maybe somebody that is like the head of a crew that always wears like jeans, chambray shirts, then you're going to be sorely disappointed in today's talk. So the second rule of public speaking is that you always want to make sure you know your audience, okay? So who are you? Get out your phone if you want to answer a couple of quick questions for me and face your screen toward me, or you can raise your hand. I'm going to ask some personal questions. You can decide if you want to participate. So just so I know the room, how many of you guys are designers? How many of you guys are copywriters? How many of you guys are business owners? How many of you guys are freelancers? Work at agencies? Okay, how many of you guys work in-house in a marketing department? And then how many of you guys know someone that suffers with anxiety or depression? Oh, good gravy. Oh, fantastic. All right, if you want to be brave, how many of you suffer yourselves from anxiety and depression? Ready? How many of you have taken or are taking antidepressants? Getting bold. How many of you regularly practice meditation? And how many of you have a therapist? This is an awesome audience. You guys are very self-aware. This is great. So now that I know a little bit about you, I can tell you about who I am. So my name is Colton Mulligan. I'm 32 years old. I was born in Texas. I've lived in Tennessee for 22 years. I've lived in Nashville for 9. I love skateboarding, craft beer, and words of affirmation is my love language. I am getting married to this lovely lady right here on June 1st. I'm putting pictures of her up here to show our relationship. Likewise, there's a photo of her, so none of you bozos will hit on her after this is over. Because if you do, I'm not very intimidating at all. You could go ahead and hit on her, honestly. I hope she says no. Fingers crossed. So all that aside, the reason I'm up here today is because 3 years ago, I started a creative agency with some of my best friends in my basement in the exact same month that I got diagnosed with type 1 bipolar disorder. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you a little bit, just real quick, of what the story arc is going to look like today. I'm going to share a piece of my story, and then I'm going to share how I've seen that connect to creative tension that I think a lot of folks in this room can relate to. And then I'm going to roll into what works. There's an asterisk there because that's kind of a bullshit idea. You never solve anxiety and all these things, but I found things that kind of help me cope and have a relationship with anxiety. So getting into my story, so we started Fox Fuel in January of 2015. We're gonna Tarantino this real quick back to January of 2014. So January 2014, every morning I would wake up and I could tell that something was a little bit off. That slowly developed into a couple of symptoms where I lost my appetite, I lost my focus, and I would stall out mid-sentence whenever I was trying to talk with people. I would forget my words. In the course of 6 weeks, I started waking up earlier and earlier until I was waking up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning with early waking insomnia, and I couldn't go back to sleep until there were some days where I wouldn't go to sleep at all. In 6 weeks, I lost 20 pounds, along with any interest in hanging out with my friends, any former passions, and I would spend all of my weekends at my dining room table trying to catch up on work. I thought I was a fake and a phony, and it was just a matter of time until people figured it out, and I got fired, I lost my house, and I had to move back in with my parents. So that kind of sent me on this spiral. I did what every great person does, and I went on WebMD, and I checked out the symptoms. I diagnosed myself with GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and I went to a therapist and I said, hey, I've got GAD, can you help me? And after one session, he wrapped up and said, you don't just have GAD, you also have depression and ADHD. Great news, buddy. So very excited. We started therapy, and things got a little bit better for a bit, and then I kind of continued a downward spiral. In about March, so here's what I look like on my birthday. I'm down to about 150 pounds. You can see my shirt is hanging off of me. And I am putting on a fake smile, trying to pretend that I enjoy life. Things got worse in about April. I started having intrusive thoughts where I would have, intrusive thoughts would come in sometimes. It would say, hey, maybe if you got in a car accident on the way to work, this wouldn't be a problem anymore. And a lot of other kind of dark thoughts. During that time, I would share this with about 2 people. And 20% of the time that I would talk to those folks, I would feel a little bit better, I would forget about it, and I could fall asleep at night. The difficulty is I never would really tell anybody the full story. And I didn't do that because I thought that no one feels this way. I've never felt this way in my entire life, and I can't account for why all of a sudden it just happened. I finally got pissed in May, and I went to my doctor, and I said, I'm sick of this. I don't care about the stigma. I don't care about that. I've had too much pride. Give me a pill and make this stop. I'd researched it because that's what you do, and I thought I needed an SSRI. Turns out that was a terrible idea for me. And so she said, I'm going to put you on 150 milligrams of Wellbutrin. And in 3 weeks, I was back up to normal. And in 3 more weeks, I was riding the rocket. So I was Superman. I had more creative energy than I'd ever had in my entire life. I didn't need to sleep. My mind would spin constantly with ideas. My friends legitimately asked me if I was on drugs. I had so much going on, I couldn't handle it. There's a lot of really great stories from that time. I bought a pull-out sleeper sofa I did not need. I racked up a ton of great things off Amazon. I have a Yoda that holds candy if anyone's interested. And I bought a 1967 GTO. And I went to 2 of my business partners and just in a fit of energy said, we should buy ourselves out from the agency, take our non-competes and leave, and then go start our own agency. So in order to do so, we had to raise funds. So we pulled some money together, still needed more. I went to my pops, I went to a doctor friend and my grandmother and asked them for money. Later that year, my grandmother developed Alzheimer's, totally forgot about any of the loan. So it was real quick, debt forgiveness, it's great. It's one of the best things I would recommend. I'm just kidding, Grandma. And then I took, because in this period, you may be putting it together, I never saw any, I didn't really perceive any risk. Nothing would go wrong in life. So I took a second mortgage out of my home, I cleaned out retirement, and we came up with the funds to do it. And on January 1st, we started Fox Fuel. That's what it looked, that's how excited I was at the time. Sorry, that was an appropriate gift. And January 1st, with some of my best friends, we started an agency in my basement. So that captures what that year was like for me. That same month, I went to a therapist and she said, hey, you've been misdiagnosed. After one session, she said you definitely have type 1 bipolar disorder. It's normally really difficult because there's so many different symptoms and anxiety shows up and depression. It's really difficult to diagnose. But in your case, you 100% have type 1 bipolar disorder, which was fine. And she said, hey, you're going to go through this cycle the rest of your life. And I was like, fantastic. This is all great news. I sat down, and kind of the moment where a lot of things started connecting and started changing, I sat down in a chair, and for 12 hours, I just wrote, which I'd never done. I bought a URL, and I started a blog, and I put it up online. And I just wrote 4 blogs about what happened in 6-month increments and what was going on. In 72 hours, it had 10,000 reads, and I'd had about 120 people reach out to me privately via like LinkedIn and Facebook and text messages and say something to the effect of, I had no idea that other people felt this way. And that started kind of a journey for me of grabbing coffee 2-3 times a week. A lot of this stuff still extends today, where I just get to sit down and people just tell me their story for whatever reason. And we talk and we share ideas and all that stuff. And then I started talking more and more, and then people would correct me that had been struggling with this stuff a lot more. I'd talk with smarter people. And so that's when I realized I should probably educate myself so I'm not just bullshitting my way through every conversation. So what I wound up doing to talk about this in an informative way, I started digging into what this means. So whether you have bipolar disorder or you struggle with anxiety or depression, there's a bunch of neurotransmitters in your brain. This won't be long. But just know that like there's 3 you can pick: dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Norepinephrine breaks down into adrenaline. Here's 3 majors. There's also like GABA and glutamate, and there's endorphins and all that stuff. Here's what's interesting. The more I researched these things, the more it became easier for me to understand what created these states. How many of you guys know about flow and the concept of flow? So those of you that don't, if you've ever had that experience where you're doing something creatively or you're lost in passion and you're so excited and it seems like the world kind of separates and you are so focused on your task, time flies by and you don't even notice what's going on. You're filled with a sense of euphoria, and you just love life and nothing can go wrong. So states like that, now have some of you felt that? More of you? Even fewer people now that I described it. Fantastic. So there's that, there's euphoria, and then obviously anxiety and depression, because what happens with these neurotransmitters is they all operate in flux, like levers, and there's different combinations that help create these states. It's not really clear yet, like the medical community is still figuring out, do these things cause these anxieties and tense situations, or do those situations inform the neurotransmitters? In bipolar, it's a little easy because they're all on or they're all off. And so it either floods, and I'm on a 6-month cycle thereabouts where I go through the period where I have it all. These are the same neurotransmitters that if you do cocaine, this is the same stuff that dumps in your brain. And so for 6 months out of the year, every time I wake up, I have so much energy and excitement because that's effectively, it's what's dumping inside my brain. And then for another 6 months out of the year, I just don't have it. So let's lighten things up. So when I was thinking about all this and I was understanding and reading more about it, you find all these examples and anecdotal evidence of creatives that have to struggle with this stuff and that talk about these states. So everything from Van Gogh to Sylvia Plath to F. Scott Fitzgerald, and then Elliott Smith and Robin Williams and everybody that would describe navigating these states and the impact on creativity and what that was like. And so not understanding how things went back and forth, it was really interesting that in the majority of the places that these people work, it seemed like there was some kind of relationship between the way that people would operate, how they would come up with their ideas, and then also the environment they'd put themselves in. Like all of you in here have chosen a career probably because you had a passion in it or you had skills or something like that. And so I've called this the creative tension. And I've got 3 real quick tensions that we articulate that I've seen that I think we can relate to. And there's a relationship there that it seems like helps either us tap into the benefits that come out of that anxiety or it helps us deal with it. And then after that, we'll wrap up with what I found works for me. So the first tension that I can talk about real quick is creatives versus accountants. So if you're in this room, most likely, like you have followed your passion, you have built up your skills, and you have, gotten with clients to pour your heart and soul into something. And you do that and you develop it, and then you walk over to somebody else, you put it in front of their face and say, hey, what do you think about this? Is this good? Do you like me? Why don't you tear it apart and give me all the criticism you want to? So no other industry operates this way. Like when my accountant gives me the books, I don't get to look at the numbers and say, these numbers don't reflect my brand. I do not like them. I thought they would be bigger. Can you take out the white space, make the numbers bigger, use some brush script? It's one tension that you feel that's unique to this career path. Another one is art versus commerce. So sometimes in an agency, this shows up like accounts versus creatives. But the difficulty is essentially, right, we all want to create art and we all want to do things that are beautiful and true and honest and inspiring. However, we also want people to pay us American dollars because we want to go buy tacos, right? So the difficulty there is you want somebody else to pay you for your art, which means you've got to turn over control in some capacity. And there's this tension that exists because are you going to die on your hill for the principle and be a poor artist, or are you going to sell out like everybody else because you want the cash and you don't care and you'll compromise your principles? I love how many smirks I'm seeing around the scene. This is fantastic. The last thing I'll talk about real quick in the tension is craft versus credit. So my business partner and our creative director, he says there's two kinds of people in this world. There's people that want to be praised themselves, and there's people that want their work to be praised. I think everybody tends to fall on a spectrum. But the difficulty there is, do you want to create something that's beautiful and inspires and could stand apart from you, or do you want to be attached from it? This is super difficult, and it was really difficult for me for a long time to take pride in the agency, yet separate my identity from things, and just being honest, like struggling with credit over pieces, and coming to terms with the fact that like most of the time when you create things, it's done in concert with others, and you don't get to take credit for it. When we have this, the fun way that our agency has found to diffuse this, if we can check the volume in just a second because I'm playing a video, there's something from Mad Men, and there's a really great scene. I'm going to show it to you real quick. Oh, gosh. Oh, it's so good. It's so true. Oh, I love that. I love that, and we all laughed. When I use that at the agency, it does not play as well to that room. They do not like it. There we go. So I think I've tried to articulate the tension, and hopefully I saw enough nods, positive affirmation, love language. So I'm hoping that some of this resonates. So what I'm going to close with is the things that have worked. And so that asterisk is there because this is still a process. And through those conversations and the coffees, I learn a little bit more every time, and I find ways to cope with this a little better. So we're going to roll through it pretty quick. To give you the tangible, like real tactical things, so I go to therapy twice a month for an hour. I meditate 20 minutes a day in the mornings. I'm on an antidepressant, which has now been ramped up to 300 milligrams of Wellbutrin. I'm on a mood stabilizer, which is 200 milligrams of lamotrigine. I have to watch how much I sleep, how much I diet, and exercise. I'm really bad at that third one. And then I think one of the more interesting things that I've done that's really helped me is I journal. I don't know why in no other part of my life am I like really organized, but for some reason when it comes to thoughts, I try to be. And so what I started doing back in 2015 is I started journaling. And when I'm in depression and anxiety, I'm a lot better about it. And I try to journal every day, making it very simple with a date, and then as few words as possible that describe that date, and then a node and notes below if I want to dive into those details. So this is a screenshot from my actual, piece. What was great about this, really interesting things I found, my downturn I was able to track out, and on July 4th, for some reason that was my downturn, and I noticed the feelings coming back the morning I woke up, and it was the first morning I woke up and I knew something was off. The next year, it was July 6th. And so at least those 2 years, it was interesting that it was like 367 days off. I've since, Foxfuel affects this, so I've kind of changed since then. But this was so effective. So I found all of these really interesting things that for me become either red herrings or they become little flags that I'm about to turn before cognitively I could figure out what's going on. Just anecdotally, I will quit enjoying music so much, and it's one of those things I don't really catch it until I'm 2 weeks into podcasts, and then I know that I quit feeling excited by music, and now I just want to escape into story. Sleep definitely affects it. I now have a scale I check every morning that's Bluetooth to my phone, and it lets me know, because when I start dipping, that's normally a pretty good sign. I'm about 6 weeks away from hitting depression and anxiety. And then when I'm putting on weight, it's great. I'm about to ride that rocket, which is fun. So I probably shouldn't have put that up there. So then the mental space. I think this is stuff that might be interesting that you could relate to. So there's a couple of mental exercises I've picked up from my therapist, and I've picked up from Headspace. You guys use Headspace? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's the best. So I play the game of so what in my head. So anxiety frequently becomes fatalistic or super negative. It's black and white thinking. There's all kinds of cognitive distortions that happen. But I play so what. So what works like this. Anytime that you imagine or you're worried an awful situation or outcome is going to happen, you say, so what? You go with the worst possible scenario, and then you take the worst possible scenario and you keep saying, so what? So, for example, let's just say, hypothetically, I was up at midnight working on a presentation for the next day. And let's say I was anxious, like, oh man, if I don't get enough sleep, I'm not going to be able to get on and I'm going to do a terrible talk. So what? Well, what if I stall out midway on my words and then my jokes fall flat and it's terrible? And I piss my pants. So what? Well, then Colin might hit on my girlfriend, fiance, and he might say, hey, are you going to stick around with old pee pants over there? Or you want to get with a hero? I didn't come up with the back half of that joke. All right. So there's that one. Eat the frog. Nathan, raise your hand. So Nathan and Jacob, two really great guys. These are guys that I swindled them. So I met them when we first started Fox Fuel. I met them separately in the same week and had honest conversation. And I told both of them, and I called them both, I think, shortly thereafter. And I said, we don't know each other very well, but I like the both of you, and I'm going to force you to get breakfast with me once every month. And so it's been fantastic. These guys have given me a lot. One of the things that Nathan took credit for, and in researching this talk, it's Mark Twain. It's not you little douche. So Mark Twain said, every morning, eat a live frog is the first thing you do, and you'll never have something worse happen to you that day. Right? And so for me and with creatives in that cycle, right, yesterday I interviewed Gary Gussick, one of the copywriters for the 1984 Apple ad, right, that kind of changed the way Super Bowls and all that stuff happened. He talked about the creative cycle, and one of the things he said is for creatives, every morning you wake up and you're anxious until you start work and you put it off. And then after that, you go through a period of engagement, and then you feel proud. And then right before you go to sleep, you find grief because none of your work is good and you start the whole day over again, right? But for me, this is 100% true. I'll put off doing the hard thing and I'll feel anxious about it all day, when in reality, if you just tackle it, you'll feel better, right? Watching the traffic, this is something from Headspace. It's a simple concept. I'm sorry, that was a big spit. Sorry. Dry mouth. So sometimes you have these thoughts come into your head when they're intrusive. It particularly helps, particularly if you're spinning on anxiety and you've got all this stuff coming in. What really helps is that if rather than trying to divert and ignore or try and stop and analyze, which is what I did for a long time because I can solve any problem on my own. Obviously not. And what's better, Headspace has a really great video about this, but it talks about the difference between watching this traffic and having all of these things come into your mind and you trying to direct or deter and deal with the collisions. In reality, there's a better way to do it if you can get the concept in your head to sit on the park bench across the street and watch the traffic. So when things come in, I'm not going to stop it. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to try and prevent things. I'm going to recognize it and say, damn, yeah, that's really stressful. And that would be bad. And then you let it go on through. It's weird. If you haven't meditated a lot, it's a weird concept. It's been so helpful to me. Anchoring. So anchoring is difficult, I think, for creatives because so many of us put so much of our value in the work that we create. And convincing yourself that you are not your work is difficult. This was one of the hardest things for me, and it came out of therapy to where I discovered that I needed to find other things in my life, and I had to understand that I had value, and other people, oh gosh, I'm going to cry. Other people saw value in me whether or not I was manic and I had tons of ideas, or whether or not I was the funniest guy in the room, or whether or not I was confident. Either way, even if I put out shit work, and even if I just wanted to go at home, there were still people in my life that would love me. Vulnerability, here we go. So that's that one simple thing. Strengths Finder helped me identify the things I can own and the things I can be good at, and the things that are okay that I can say, no, I suck at that. I lied through like a half dozen interviews saying, oh, I'm a very good multitasker. Oh, no, I'm very organized. And I'm great with time management. All of those things, if Foxfield got hit by a meteor and I had to go interview, I would just own up to what I'm bad at. No, I'm not very good at those things. I'm probably going to be late to some meetings. But I'm really good and I love attention, so I really love talking to groups, right? So, and the last thing is acceptance. This hit me on Monday of this week. I was doing my meditation, and whatever that deep voiced British dude is in Headspace, he said something that I realized, which is, I fought it, my 2016 depression was basically like all metaphysics. Like, it's just weird. I got into a space where I was like, what's it all worth? Like, what does this mean? Like, it was weird. And I found myself playing a game of trying to like crack the code of anxiety. And I was gonna ditch it, and I was gonna figure out how to never feel it again. And he made a point, and my therapist really worked on me with the fact that you're never gonna ditch anxiety. It's part of the creative process, and it's part of who we are as human beings. It's just the way we are. The only thing that can change is your relationship to anxiety. There's a difference in accepting it. And my therapist used a really great, I'm gonna butcher this, but she said the difference between pain and suffering is pain exists and you're gonna have it all the time. But pain without acceptance is suffering. Either way, things are gonna feel bad, but there's a big difference between those two concepts. All right, so what can you do? We are wrapping up. So this is the super tactical pieces. So this is really practical, tactical. It's what you can do today. So I started this. It's a long story. I don't have time for the history. But now there's a thing we call Share Gathering. It meets in my living room every Wednesday at between 6:30 and 7. Folks show up. And it's just a place where people come and they have honest conversations about the intersection of life and mental health. Some people come because they have a loved one that's going through something. Sometimes people come because they're really in the throes of something and they want to talk about it. Almost every time, there's a lot of laughter. Some people cry. Rarely is there a breakdown, but either way, it's become this really comfortable space for a group of anywhere from 15 to 25 people. This is an open invitation, which is the worst idea ever. But I would legitimately love for you to come out. On the larger nights, we split up into 2 or 3 groups on my back porch. I have a basement that looks like a nightclub in the 80s. But anyway, I would love to have you come by. Most people, particularly poor, starving artists that haven't sold out yet, don't have a great income and they have a hard time coming up with therapy. The Lipscomb Family Therapy Center is one that does pay scale pricing. For $10 to $90, you can go and have a therapist and start to talk stuff out. Therapy is probably the #1 thing that's helped me the most. Gallup Strengths Finder, find $20 and 35 minutes where you can go and take the test where you have 6 seconds to answer every question. It's one of the most effective ways that I found for anchoring to figure out what am I good at and what can I own and what can I not be anxious about because I'm not supposed to be good at it. Buy someone coffee. It's one of the most, it's also a really beneficial thing to me. If you want to reach out or connect to somebody, then just hearing somebody's story does so much. If you don't have someone to buy for, you can buy me coffee. And the last thing is be patient. Particularly, I talk about this with if you're in pharmacology or you're looking at drugs or pills to help you out. Sorry, that sounds bad. Not self-medicating. Sorry, like through a physician and a medically approved practice. Sorry. You got to be patient. Everybody's got their own mix of neurotransmitters, and the way those things work with meditation and all these other pieces, it takes a long time to find a way that you even feel good about your approach to it. I still don't feel great every day, and it's taken me 3 years to get there. So being patient definitely helps. Honestly, what was my goal today? Anytime I do one of these talks, my main goal is that at least one person would hear something in the talk that they related to. And so the goal there is that I'm just hoping that I make it a little bit easier for somebody in here to talk to somebody and share and connect with somebody that can relate to that tension. Because it just really helps. And if you don't have someone that can relate to that tension, you can come talk to me. I love words of affirmation, and I obviously love attention. So anyway, that's it.